There's an old joke that when you're playing D&D, you expect Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, but you end up with It's Always Sunny in the Forgotten Realms. This is that. This is exactly that. This is the story of four friends who opened a tavern together and tore it apart from the inside out. But first, thank you to today's sponsor. What if the worlds in your head didn't have to stay in a Google Doc or physical notebook? What if you could give them a place to grow, evolve, and naturally organize their way into reality? This is World Anvil, the desktop platform built for anyone with a story to tell, or just someone who loves building deep lore. Organize your world with over 25 templates, running a campaign, choose from over 45 supported RPG systems, including 5e. Or go full mad scientist and create your own. And the players aren't left out either. You get character sheets, spellbooks, journals, inventory systems. But of course, this isn't just a TTRPG supplement. Writers of every kind can manage plots, characters, and lore, and even publish your work when you're ready. So whatever you're crafting, novels, campaigns, multiversal timelines, why build it on your own when you can craft it on the World Anvil? Click the link below, I will see you there. Roll post. Our campaign began with us already owning a tavern. We were best friends and played many long campaigns. This one was different. We weren't mercenaries, we were tavern owners, and we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. The system our DM built for tavern management was pro level. There were mechanics for inventory management, staffing, customer and employee morale, branching skill trees in the form of permits to unlock things like gambling licenses and magical entertainment, and there was a reputation tracker known as the Star System. 5 bronze stars made you the best in the city. 5 silver stars made you the best in the region. 5 gold stars have never been achieved. More stars meant better clientele. Better clientele meant higher prices. Our dream, or maybe just my dream, was to be the first tavern to reach 5 stars. In Session 0, we spent 40 minutes in a planning phase. The city had dozens of taverns, each varying in upkeep, location, and potential foot traffic. We narrowed it down to 2. Option 1, a rat-infested broom closet in an upscale district with high foot traffic. Option 2, a beautiful, suspiciously affordable property in a mid-tier neighborhood. We chose the second one, obviously. We tried to intimidate the seller into revealing the catch, but it failed. We bought it anyway. Whatever it was, it can't be that bad. Oh, but of course, this is how every good campaign starts, with reckless real estate decisions. You know it's a great business plan when intimidation checks are part of the leasing process. Really lets you feel the trust in the room. But for real, I love this form of progression. Tell the players where to go, and then let them creatively find their own way to get there. Having a clear objective like this requires that the players care, but so long as they care, you get the best of the railroad and the sandbox. A clear and obvious goal, but infinite ways to get there. This is very good. Everyone picked their roles. Grim, our half-orc paladin, was the bouncer. One time a customer caught her boyfriend cheating on her in the tavern. Grim offered her emotional closure via suplexing him. We were disqualified from the local tavern awards that year, but we all agreed it was worth it. Fenwick, the gnome wizard, was our magical solutions specialist, which is a polite way of saying that he treated OSHA compliance like a boss fight. He spent the entire campaign in a cold war against the health inspector's office. Vire, the bard, handled marketing, bartending, and human resources. She wrote down tavern jingles and started a turf war with a rival bar by releasing a diss track. It charted, locally. And me? Tark, middle-aged dwarf, braided beard, bald head. I was the unintended manager. Technically, we were all equal owners, but I was always the note-taker in every campaign, which meant that I did the books, I managed inventory, I applied for every single permit, refund, and magical tax credit. After pretty much no deliberation, we called the tavern the Scum Bucket. We saved so much money on the property that we could invest in quality equipment for the business. We weren't rolling in gold, but we were making it day by day. Vire pulled all the right strings to pack the place with a grand opening. The opening night took 2 full sessions to run. It was a true test of our abilities. There were rabble-rousers demanding customers, a packed bar, non-stop. We didn't know what we were doing. We were understaffed and overwhelmed. The second session was easier. As it grew late, customers slowed down, we adapted to the chaos, and we ended the night on a positive note. After that, the reviews rolled in. We got 2 bronze stars. The early days of the Scum Bucket were a grind. Margins were razor thin. Every post-session breakdown we had to decide between keep the lights on and buy a new mop. But the systems worked. We rose to 3 stars. We even had regular NPCs who would appear frequently. Our most regular customer, old Lieutenant Thry, practically lived at the bar and helped us for free. And then we received a letter. Elven diplomats were coming to our city, looking to us to host their gathering. This was a 5-star opportunity. If we keep getting this kind of business, we would be a major destination in the city. Vire came in clutch yet again and snatched the deal through sheer charisma. Elven nobles, money to spend, and delicate as glass. A perfect crowd, only if treated delicately. Our oven was malfunctioning, but Grim made it work just long enough to prepare his Minotaur fire stew, graciously adding extra meat. The elves quietly but scathingly battered us with passive-aggressive compliments. Meanwhile, Fenwick was in a rush to fix our oven. Due to a series of just unfortunate rolls, it malfunctioned, loudly boomed, and caught fire. Fenwick was the cause of most of our troubles, but this time, it simply wasn't his fault. The elves stood up, insulted our lineage, and walked out mid-meal. We dropped half a star. Unable to work for a place with such bad repute, our best server quit and immediately got hired by the bakery next door. We had only just opened, but the cracks were showing. Then, late one night, as Fenwick was doing some final cleanup after everyone had left, a glass tipped over and broke, seemingly on its own. Classic Fenwick luck. Despite the elves, despite the kitchen fires, after time and good service had washed the memory away, we were approaching 3 stars. Gaining momentum, packing every other night, line out the door, patrons brought their friends, and those friends brought better paying friends. The bards started name-dropping us in their sets. We paid a skeezy local paladin to knight one of our bar stools. Vire's marketing hit its peak. The Scum Bucket was thriving. Grim and I finalized negotiations with a nearby bakery to stop poaching our staff. I brought a pie. It had a threat baked inside. Fenwick installed a keg chiller, but somehow, without him even trying, it started whispering drink recipes in Abyssal. It kept telling him to go into the basement. This terrified him. He kept trying to tell us and show us the evil keg chiller, and we didn't believe him. It was hilarious. That week, we ran the perfect event. No fights, no fire, no loss of blood. Just a smooth, character-driven tavern dinner session where we, our characters, sat down in our bar, drank fake drinks, and toasted to each other's nonsense. Nothing notable happened in that game, very few dice rolls, just an in-character hangout. Somehow, even though nothing much happened, I feel like that's the most in-character that we've ever been. That was my favorite session. It wasn't a fight. Not yet. For a few sessions it felt like we had mostly found our balance. Then the drift started. Me and Grim liked running a legitimate business and the prospect of gaining stars and growing. Fenwick and Vire cared about spectacle and whatever wild idea was currently bouncing around their skulls. They didn't care as much about the stars or the progress. They liked catering to the rogues and the troublemakers. This disagreement didn't matter as much at first because whether I liked it or not, those were the regulars. But times were changing and we were really making something of this place. This story is just so much fun. I do have 2 points that sort of contradict each other, but both are worth mentioning. On one hand, everybody agreeing before the campaign starts that they should be aligned in their goal to be the best would make the tavern run a lot smoother. We all know that, this is obvious. But on the other hand, and the reason I don't hold this against the party in this context, is because this is drama. This feels real. This is every story where the visionary and the businessman clash. It's competing visions, and they have to fight just hard enough to win without destroying the tavern altogether. So I'm not in a rush to say that either is better or this party is doing anything wrong. It's fun to all work together as a team, but this adds so much complexity and depth. It's the tavern versus itself, but they still have to work together just well enough to keep the lights on. I love this. I added one column to the ledger. Likelihood of internal coup? We were still laughing, still showing up, still rolling dice, but deep down, we were just as much a tavern as we were a powder keg. But there was no time for that. The next session opened with us hearing pounding and screaming from the basement. We rushed over there and tried to open the door. It was locked from the inside. We had to break it down. It was Fenwick. He was frozen. Fenwick and the DM agreed that between sessions, Fenwick's curiosity would get the better of him, luring him into a basement where he found a bloody axe under a loose tile. It was compelling him, so he cast Detect Thoughts on it. He was flashed with visions of what this place really is. This place belonged to Kelter, the Butcher of Belstead, who lured travelers with cheap drinks and a free room upstairs. They never checked out. The place was shut down, condemned, and after the nobility wanted to forget the scandal, sold for cheap. We were running a bar on a serial killer's murder ground. We needed to address this. It did try to kill Fenwick, but if a customer dies on premises, we would be in serious trouble. What kind of... They said that in the worst way possible. They said it did try to kill Fenwick, but if it kills a customer, then we're in trouble. They said it like they wanted it to kill Fenwick. Like, it kind of hand waves, or maybe says like, we low-key wish that Fenwick was dead, but if it gets a customer, it's a problem, so we have to take care of this. Fenwick, just nothing seems to go right for the guy, the little gnome wizard, man. This is back-to-back stories where it's a gnome that keeps getting in trouble. The last video was with, Jerry, the gnome bard, and now we have Fenwick, the gnome wizard, who's getting absolutely smeared. Does the D&D community hate gnomes? Do we have a problem with gnomes that I should know about? Because I'll join. I can also hate on gnomes, just like anybody else, but I'd like a little update because I'm just seeing a huge influx of hate of gnome hate. We couldn't afford a single day of missed profits, so even though we had a murder ghost in the basement, we opened the tavern. All we needed to do was run a busy and bustling tavern night while also secretly holding a basement seance. It was a nightmare. We needed old Lieutenant Thry to help hold down the bar while we were in the basement trying to bring his spirit out into the light. Eventually, it worked. An axe-wielding maniac ghost ravaged our basement, swearing to kill us the way he killed so many others in this place. But there were customers. We couldn't rely on Thry alone to manage our bar, so we would tag in and out. A couple of us would stay in the basement battling the ghost, while the other half would manage the bar and recover, until we would go back into the basement and swap places again. Eventually, with Fenwick rolling death saves, wizard constitution, and nerfed by hypothermia, we eventually defeated him. A spectral boom rattled the entire tavern. We thought it was over, but he erupted in light. The basement was flooded with ghosts. Dude, this is awesome. This has to be maybe the most creative boss fight in the history of this channel. I can imagine the customers seeing people come into and out of the basement battered and bloody, and then serving some drinks and rotating with even more bruised people. When people think of creative boss fights, we often think of including environmental effects or hidden weaknesses or other combat forms. But this is creative because it chucks all that to the side and says, oh no, this is a completely normal boss fight, but try and do that while also keeping it a secret and serving customers. It's like Diner Dash mixed with Dark Souls. This is how you run a creative boss fight, people. I love this. In the basement, the ghosts stared at us in terror. They were just as afraid of us as we were of them. They were about to scream, but Grim rolled intimidation to shush them. Finally, something worked out for us. They remained quiet. As it turned out, they were the ghosts of Kelter's victims. We didn't fix the haunting, we expanded it. We got rid of one hostile ghost, but in his place, we got 24 ghosts and a bar full of customers demanding to know what on earth is going on. We asked the ghosts to wait a bit. Grim stayed in the basement to watch them. They were terrified of him. What on earth is going on down there? Illegal fighting ring? Can we watch? No. Ah, yes, the old steamed hams technique. Gets him every time. I already made enough to break even during the fight. We closed the bar and kicked everyone out except old Lieutenant Thry. We can't hide this many ghosts forever. Yeah, we need to set their souls free ASAP. But how? You, ghosts, how do we set your souls free? Ghosts? We're dead? No! Oh, God. We wanted to call a ghost specialist, but they were too expensive. So I, business-mindedly, approached them with an offer. We give them jobs. Because, in the end, it wasn't just a haunted tavern. It was our haunted tavern. And to them, it could become a haunted home while we figure all of this out. The ghosts agreed, for now. They never did come around on liking Grim, but they obeyed his every word. With that resolved, it didn't take long for us to get back to our old tensions. The bar ran smoothly, though we did have a round of interviews with law enforcement regarding what exactly was happening here. The cops said they'd be keeping an eye on us. But for us players, it was a four-way match of tug-of-war for control of the bar. The scum bucket was no longer a business, it was a war zone. The main people in disagreement were myself and Vire. Fenwick and Grim weren't neutral, but they weren't ruthless either. In most arguments, Grim would side with me, and Fenwick would side with Vire. But there were times when they would both switch sides or overrule one of us. Vire would get us in legal hot water by cutting deals with criminals and undercutting the authorities, even getting our tavern involved as a headquarters for a street gang in a war. Grim hated this. Fenwick would sometimes assist these efforts, but I just wanted to run a legitimate business. I wish I could write all of the different ways this story went to build up to this point, but this is getting long enough. To the point, we would joke out of character that this is going to end with us murdering each other. The DM, instead of stopping us, leaned in. Without announcement, he dropped homebrew PvP rules in the group chat. He didn't tell us to do anything or even hinted at true PvP before, but we knew the campaign was about to change drastically. D&D party civil war. What I like the most is that neither side is really wrong. In fact, I would say that they're both right. I would love to play in either campaign. The game where you run a slummy bar in the bad side of town. It sounds awesome, and the stories you can do there are amazing. But also, the progression story where you rise to the top? Man, I would take both if I could. But if I just had to choose a side here, I would be tempted to choose Team Vire, specifically because the place is literally called the Scum Bucket. Like, before you become a worldwide destination, 5-star, #1 in the world, sophisticated, I wouldn't go to the Scum Bucket. I don't know how they got the deal with elven diplomats to go to the Scum Bucket, okay? Anyways, this is a very different form of D&D game. Usually, in a lot of them, the party is together, working towards one common goal. That's like the baseline, that's a normal campaign. This one is so experimental because the party is as much against each other as they are against the world around them. I think that is really, really cool. And this has to be a top 3 DMing experience, when the party takes on a story of their own, and the DM can just sit back and watch how they develop. The next session, I went in to work at the tavern, and there Grim stood, sword drawn, staring down Vire from across the room. Vire returned his gaze. Fenwick stood on the bar, eyeing both of them with his wand at the ready. The previous couple sessions were a build-up. We all knew this is where it was headed. I didn't want to start a fight, and I wasn't going to, but when the possibility of fighting is presented, if you're not first, you're at a disadvantage. Then, our scumbucket exploded into chaos. Chairs shattered. Lightning bolts flew. Grim suplexed Fenwick through the catering table. Vire attacked me. We fought for exactly 3 full rounds, gave and took a good amount of damage, except Fenwick, who was on death's door rolling saves. What did... He wasn't even a main antagonist, I don't think. I think Grim just did that. Grim was staring down Vire, and then suplexes Fenwick through a table first. Why? I don't know why I find it so funny that it's like specifically if it's Fenwick, it's on site. Everybody else is second place. It doesn't matter where the hierarchy of grievances is. Fenwick is on the top of that just for existing. Like, it's mentioned earlier that Fenwick is the cause of most of their trouble, but they never really truly elaborate on that. They just so I have no basis to go on. Trouble how? Trouble how? What could he possibly cause? He gets bodied every single time. Even if it's you versus me, you gotta get to Fenwick first. There's no situation in this game where Fenwick doesn't get seriously injured. The ghosts all ran out, surrounding us. They screamed so loud, we all failed our constitution saves and were temporarily deafened. Walls bled. The lights went black. All we could see was total darkness and the glow of their spectral figures. I wasn't thinking about it then, but maybe it wasn't a great idea to try killing each other in a haunted murder house. We scrambled. I grabbed the emergency salt bucket and shook it, clearing a path out. The ghosts tried to rush us, but didn't want to risk touching the salt, though we were deaf, beaten, bloody, and shaken. We carved a way out of the tavern. Grim went back and picked up Fenwick. Though he just beat Fenwick to the point of death, he wasn't gonna let him die here like this. We opened the door and were greeted by the blinding light of the noon sun. After a couple seconds of our eyes adjusting, we could see clearly. That is, we could clearly see 2 government agencies, the town guard responding to the screams, and the armed mage guard. They stepped forward and told us to get on our knees and put our hands up. I immediately comply. Vire vanishes. Grim chucks Fenwick's limp, unconscious body into the guard column and runs away. Bro, why? I get it. I'm not even, I'm done. I'm done commenting on this. I'm done. I'm done psychologically torturing myself trying to figure out what Fenwick even did. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy. And every chance he gets, they shit on him. When I imagine Fenwick, I think of that baby hamster meme with the huge eyes. Yeah, that one. I know full well my elderly dwarf does not have the speed nor the magic to get away from this. They both got away, but with them living as fugitives and Fenwick recovering in the hospital, I got to liquidate the tavern, take all of the money, and get the best lawyer to represent me. But the cops had been watching us for weeks. We were charged with unlicensed supernatural labor, illegal fight club in the basement, many health code violations. Each of us were charged with assault. Grim was charged with an attempted murder and an assault on the officer. Also, many of Fenwick's inventions were illegal. In the end, Vire got away and lived with the criminal gang that she was helping this whole time. They owed her several favors. Grim burnt his face and broke his oath, becoming a hitman for the rich. I took a plea deal, got 5 years house arrest. I got off very easy, but liquidating a tavern and taking everyone's money can afford a hell of a lawyer. I got out in 3.5 years with good behavior. I still had a little money left over, so I bought a small stand and sold baked goods on the side of the street, eking out a humble, peaceful living in semi-retirement. Fenwick was sentenced to 20 years in a maximum security dungeon with no possibility of parole. Dude, what is wrong? That campaign was a ton of fun. I miss it so much every time I think about it. We always talk about reprising our characters and having a sequel campaign where we reprise our characters. What? You know, it says a lot that the scariest thing in this murder house wasn't the ghosts, it was the owners. I like that towards the end, they had the opposite problem of the one that they started with. At first it was a rough tavern, but the owners made it work. And in the end, it was a fine tavern, but the owners had problems. Also, one thing I want to point out about this game and the way it's being relived and retold is that they very rarely point to the DM specifically. They talk about the events as if they actually happened, which is very interesting to me because what that points to, and what I think of, is that the players barely saw the game as controlled by the DM. They saw it as an actual narrative, like an actual world. In my opinion, at least, that just speaks to how immersive and how good of a storyteller the DM actually is. The DM tells the story so well that the players don't see it as the DM talking to them. They see it as the world naturally reacting to their actions. I think that's the tell of an amazing DM and amazing players, the DM being able to tell the story amazingly, and the players seamlessly blending into the way the game is told. This points directly towards the beginning of the story, when OP says that they've all played games together many times over the years. I feel like this is what happens when a group is really settled in and really, really into the game and each other's roles in the party. Also, just to close the Fenwick book here, assuming that his player was good with this, like he was a punching bag, but he leaned into being a punching bag, I just know that he was the funniest one at the table. He seems like the funnest person to play with. Somebody who can get dogged on, take it, roll with it, and make it fun for everybody without drawing like feelings of pity or not making you feel like on edge by dogging on them. Those are some of the funnest people to hang out with. I would love to shake the hands of everybody involved in this campaign, but I have claws, so can't do that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and as always, till next time,